Plenty of clubs have had great Champions League nights. Very few have owned the final itself. These are the 10 clubs with the biggest final history in European Cup and Champions League history. At number 10, Manchester United. 5 finals and 3 wins already make them elite, but United's European story hits harder than most. They were one of the first English clubs to treat the European Cup like a major target, back when plenty in England still saw it as a distraction. That mattered because it put United into Europe's biggest conversations early. The Busby Babes gave the club youth, ambition, and real belief, and then everything changed with the Munich air disaster in 1958. That tragedy could have broken the club completely, but United rebuilt, stayed ambitious, and kept aiming for the biggest stage in club football. The breakthrough came in 1968 when United beat Benfica and became the first English club to win the European Cup. Then Sir Alex Ferguson gave them 2 more legendary nights: the stoppage time miracle against Bayern in 1999 and the penalty shootout win over Chelsea in 2008. Even the defeats tell you something, because in 2009 and 2011, United were still the team reaching the final and facing one of the strongest Barcelona sides ever seen. Compared with some clubs around them, these 5 finals carry huge emotional weight. United's place here is about pain, recovery, and the habit of coming back. At number 9, Ajax, and this club is here for much more than numbers. 6 finals and 4 wins tell you they belonged at the top table, but Ajax also changed how Europe thought football could be played. They lost the 1969 final to Milan, and at first that looked like the ceiling. In reality, it was just the start of Ajax learning how to own the competition. Within a couple of years, the Amsterdam side became the team of total football, with movement, technique, and intelligence all over the pitch. They were not just better in moments, they were changing the whole conversation. From 1971 to 1973, Ajax won 3 straight European Cups, and that run alone would guarantee them a place in almost any all-time ranking. It was not just a great team, it was school, academy, and football philosophy all at once. Then came the next great wave, when the young Ajax side of 1995 won the Champions League and reached another final in 1996. With all due respect to clubs with similar totals, Ajax stands out because the influence goes way beyond trophies. They did not just win in Europe, they taught Europe a different way to win. That is why 6 Ajax finals feel bigger than 6 finals for most clubs. Number 8 is Benfica, one of the great early powers of the European Cup. 7 finals and only 2 wins might look a little strange at first, but those 2 titles were massive. Benfica won the competition in 1961 and 1962, and the second one mattered even more because it came against Real Madrid, the team that had owned the tournament in its first era. For a moment, Benfica were the club that broke Madrid's grip on Europe, and that matters more than people remember. This was a side that forced its way into the top tier and made Lisbon feel like the center of the football world. Eusebio became the face of that period, and his name is inseparable from Benfica's European reputation. But what really defines this club in finals is the contrast. After those back-to-back triumphs, Benfica kept reaching the last game and kept falling just short in 1963, 1965, 1968, 1988, and 1990. Very few clubs can say they were that close so many times. Compared with Ajax or United, Benfica has fewer modern reference points, but the scale of that early run is too big to ignore. Their final history is glorious and frustrating at the same time, and that is exactly why they belong here. 7th place goes to Inter, with 7 finals and 3 wins. Inter's European history is split into clear chapters, and that makes them one of the most interesting clubs on this list. First came Grande Inter in the 1960s, when the club won the European Cup in 1964 and 1965 and built a reputation for being ruthless when the stakes were highest. They were not always the most romantic side, but they were brutally effective, and in big European ties that counts for a lot. That team defined Inter as a club that could control games, punish mistakes, and make top opponents feel uncomfortable. Then came the long gap, with lost finals in 1967 and 1972 before Inter dropped away from the very top for years. The return in 2010 changed everything again. Mourinho's side did not just win the Champions League, it completed a season that put Inter back in the elite conversation everywhere. And in the modern game, they have kept knocking on the door, reaching the 2023 final against Manchester City and returning again in 2025. Another contender around this area is Benfica, but Inter edges them because the success is spread across very different eras. That staying power matters when you rank clubs like this. At 6, Barcelona. 8 finals and 5 wins is elite production by any standard, but the path matters here. Barca reached the final as early as 1961, yet for a long time the European Cup felt like the missing piece in the club's identity. That changed at Wembley in 1992. When Barcelona finally won their first title there, it was more than just a trophy. It was the moment the club started to see itself not only as a giant in Spain, but as a true European reference point. That win reset the way the club looked at itself, and the rest of Europe felt it too. After that, the titles kept coming. 2006, 2009, 2011, and 2015. The 2008 to 2020 stretch in particular turned Barcelona into the style team of modern Europe. They were not just winning. They were becoming the example everyone else talked about, copied, or tried to stop. Barcelona made possession football feel glamorous and decisive at the same time, and very few clubs have had that kind of cultural pull. Compared with some teams below them, Barca have fewer finals than you might expect for such a huge club, but the quality of those peak years is impossible to ignore. When Barcelona were at their best, they looked like football's cleanest idea made real. Number 5 is Juventus, and this might be the strangest record in the whole ranking. 9 finals should put a club among the absolute kings of Europe, yet Juve only won 2 of them. That is why their place feels so unusual. They are one of the most consistent clubs in European Cup history, but also one of the competition's great heartbreak stories. Juventus first reached the final in 1973, then won the tournament in 1985 and again in 1996, proving more than once that they belonged at the highest level. Across decades, different managers and different squads kept dragging Juve back into the last game. That consistency is absolutely real. But the losses are what make this story unforgettable. Juventus reached 3 straight finals from 1996 to 1998, then returned in 2003, 2015, and 2017, and most of those nights ended in disappointment. In fact, no club has lost more finals in this competition. With all due respect to Barcelona, who sit just below on total finals, Juventus climbs higher here because 9 appearances is simply too much to overlook. The problem is efficiency, not presence. That is what makes Juve so hard to place. They are clearly bigger than their trophy count, but the trophy count also keeps them below the real top tier. In Europe, they spent years reaching the door and finding it shut. At number 4, Liverpool, one of the purest European clubs the game has ever seen. 10 finals and 6 wins explain why their Champions League reputation is so different from their league record in some eras. Liverpool took their first European Cup in 1977, defended it in 1978, and added 2 more in 1981 and 1984. That run made them the standard for English clubs in Europe, and it gave the club an aura that never really disappeared, even when the team itself changed. Even when domestic form dipped or generations moved on, Europe still seemed to bring out Liverpool's clearest football identity. Of course, the biggest modern reference point is Istanbul in 2005. Coming back from 3-0 down against Milan to win on penalties is still one of the most famous finals the sport has ever seen. The comeback became part of football language. Mention the city and most fans know exactly which match you mean. Liverpool then reached another final in 2007, and under Jurgen Klopp they went back 3 more times in 2018, 2019, and 2022, lifting the trophy again against Tottenham. Compared with Juventus, Liverpool have 1 more final and a much better return once they get there. That is what pushes them into the top 4. Their European story is belief, noise, and repeat comebacks. Number 3 is Bayern Munich, and this is what sustained European power looks like. 11 finals and 6 wins tell you Bayern almost never stay away for long. They became the first German club to win the European Cup, then made a proper dynasty of it by lifting the trophy 3 years in a row from 1974 to 1976. That stretch locked Bayern into the elite permanently, and it also set the tone for what the club would keep doing for decades: reset, rebuild, return, and go deep again. There is no single Bayern era. There are several, and that is exactly the point. The impressive part is that Bayern's story is not just built on wins. It is built on how they answered huge defeats. There were lost finals in 1982 and 1987, the last-minute collapse against Manchester United in 1999, and the brutal home defeat to Chelsea in 2012. Each time, Bayern came back. The 2013 win felt like the perfect answer to 2012, and the 2020 title proved they could still dominate the modern game as well. Another giant with 11 finals is Milan, but Bayern sits slightly lower because Milan handled the last step better. Even so, plenty of clubs recover once. Bayern have done it again and again, and that is why they stay this high. Second place goes to Milan, level with Bayern on 11 finals but ahead on final wins. 7 victories make Milan the most successful Italian club in European Cup and Champions League history, and their record across generations is outstanding. The first title came in 1963, making them the first Italian winners of the competition. Another followed in 1969, but Milan's real dominance came later, when the club turned elite European football into something that almost looked routine. They have been elegant, brutal, clinical, and tactically sharp in different decades. The style changed, the level stayed high, and the badge kept turning up in the last game. Just look at the peaks. Milan won back-to-back titles in 1989 and 1990, reached 3 straight finals from 1993 to 1995, and crushed Barcelona in the 1994 showpiece, then lifted the trophy again in 2003 and 2007. Yes, Istanbul in 2005 remains one of the most painful defeats any great club has ever suffered. But even that final says something important about Milan. They were there again, on the biggest stage again, with another huge team. Compared with Bayern, the total finals are the same, but Milan turned more of those nights into trophies. 7 wins in 11 finals is a ruthless return at this level. Only one club can clearly beat it. And number 1 is Real Madrid, by a distance. 18 finals and 15 wins is not just a record, it is almost a separate category. Real did not only dominate the early European Cup, they helped define what the competition was, winning the first 5 editions from 1956 to 1960, and then adding another title in 1966. Most clubs would build an entire legend from that opening chapter alone. Real used it as a starting point. From the very beginning, the competition seemed to fit Real's image, pressure, and belief. They understood the occasion before everyone else, and the tournament never really escaped them. What makes their lead ridiculous is what happened in the modern era. After ending the long wait in 1998, Real won again in 2000 and 2002, then started another golden age with La Decima in 2014. From there came the 3 straight titles between 2016 and 2018, followed by more wins in 2022 and 2024. Other clubs dream of reaching one final in a generation. Real treat the final like familiar ground. That is why the number 15 matters so much. It is not just that Real reach finals. It is that when they get there, they usually finish the job. With all respect to Milan, Bayern, Liverpool, and the rest, Real Madrid are not visitors in this story. They are the standard. So this ranking is not only about trophies, it is about who keeps showing up when Europe gets hardest. And at the very top, one club has turned the biggest night in football into something that almost feels normal. Now over to you. Which club is too high, which one is too low, and who should have made the list? Drop your ranking in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and stay here for more football rankings.